Hello, wonderful art parents. Welcome back to school. I hope you guys had a great break. To be honest, I'm not sure I'm really ready yet, but here we go. It's January anyway, right? And this month's lesson is a really easy one. We are going to be studying Leonardo da Vinci, who was really one of the greatest minds ever to live. He was born really close to the beginning of the Renaissance. So he was born in 1452, and the Renaissance really started going around the middle of the 1400s. He was the son of a local nobleman, and then we don't know who his mother was other than she was a peasant woman. And because he was an illegitimate son, there's not a whole lot of record, there's not much recorded from his growing up. But he was an avid journal keeper, and so we have a lot of great details. After he went to work at about age 14, he went to start his apprenticeship in the studio of Verrocchio, who he really, really admired and loved and continued to work closely with for the rest of his life. And during that study, during the Renaissance in general, it was common for artists not to specify so much. They didn't work so specifically. So today, if you are an oil painter, you usually an artist will narrow down their scope to, I paint portraits, I paint landscapes, I'm an abstract artist, and I paint in oils, or I only paint in watercolor, or I do mixed media. But during the Renaissance, artists studied a really high number of different skills and could do a lot of different things. And it was common for an artist to also be a scientist. A lot of the doctors were also artists, which is why the guild that Da Vinci joined was the Guild for Doctors and Artists. So he also studied metallurgy and metalworking, drafting, chemistry, plaster casting, leatherworking, mechanics, woodworking, all of these other skills that he worked on. And you can see that that real scientific mind in his paintings, in the composition of his paintings. A lot of art historians have done a lot of research on and showing that you can formulate his compositions down to specific equations and find really strong geometric principles in his paintings. And the Last Supper is a really great example of that. You can see how the doorways and the sides of the walls all bring the eye down to that diminishing point, which is behind Christ. So it keeps your eye focused on Christ, who is the subject of the painting. But even you can see the coffers in the ceiling kind of point your eye down. It's really impressive. There's some really fun and interesting stuff you can read about that if you're interested. It's pretty amazing. This is one of my favorites. And even in this portrait of this noblewoman, he's made little word plays and references by her holding an ermine, which was another name. Her name was another name for an ermine, and he's got a lot of interesting, he just puts a lot into his paintings. But most impressively is the sfumato technique that Da Vinci really was kind of one of the pioneers for, and definitely one of the first to really completely master. So if you look in the shading in her hands, especially up in the face, you can see he really emphasized the corners of the eyes, the corners of the mouths, which gave a really interesting, a really sharp depth to his pictures. And if you look closely, the reason why the Mona Lisa is so famous, let me grab it out here, not because of her mysterious smile, although it is interesting and mysterious. And I know there is a lot of conjecture about different aspects of the painting, but really in the art world, what makes this such an amazing painting is the mastery of that sfumato technique. So if you look closely, you won't find any solid lines anywhere in this painting. Everything is just shaded down to a teeny tiny point to create the suggestion of the line, which is such a difficult skill to master. It's so subtle. You have to be so skilled. And then also there's the interesting, you can see the background is really unusual. It's not like anything that you'd find in Italy or in France, which were the two places that he lived. So that was really uncommon for the day also, to come up with this really mythical, fanciful background. And then I think Da Vinci himself also gave a lot of weight to this painting in that it was one that he worked on for over 30 years. He carried it with him and worked on it for a very long time, and never really declaring it completed before he passed away, which is pretty cool and pretty impressive. And then also we have, like I mentioned before, just these extensive diaries, extensive books kept by Da Vinci, where he thought out different processes, worked through different ideas, and invented so many different things, invented different ideas that actually we use today. They have, with our modern inventions, we've kind of drawn on his ideas that he never published, but he kept, and then later they were, kind of, not really published in the published sense, but really interesting. I mean, look at this early scythe and plow. This is an idea for an armored tank. And you can see that, in the early 1500s, late 1400s, early 1500s, here are these ideas that today we're still using really similar ideas on a more complex scale. But he didn't have any way of, he came up with these ideas without any way of creating them. He didn't have the technology to actually see them come to pass, but just so amazing. His mind was so amazing. And then I included this one because it gives you a chance to look at his interesting writing that was backwards, with a lot of substitutions, and it's kind of flamboyant, kind of difficult to read, but that kind of kept his, I don't know, there's a lot of different speculation on why he did that specifically, but most people feel it was kind of to keep his ideas to himself. So today we will focus on not his paintings, which were amazing, but were a relatively really small part of his body of work, but his various inventions. And so I want you to kind of look through these pictures with the kids and talk about them, notice things, ask them what they think is going on. How do you think this works? What do you think this is supposed to do? What do you think this is for? And kind of talk through it with them. And then we'll just pass out paper and pencils. I'll have colored pencils on the cart so that if they want to color in their ideas, they're welcome to. And just say, I want you to come up with some ideas of your own. So here are some ideas that I came up with. The spick and span spider is a little, it has a little body that it can, like a dustpan body that it can push the dust and dirt up into. And then his little legs have microfiber pads. So as he kind of scoots along the floor, he can dust stuff into his dustpan body. This one is actually kind of based on a Da Vinci drawing for a ladder back chair with a ladder that can extend and telescope up and become, so you've got a chair in your kitchen, you maybe don't have a lot of room, but it can be a step stool and a ladder and a chair. And then this one is a backpack with wings that extend out of the backpack through these slits, and they're little telescoping poles that the person can use to flap the wings to fly home after school. So the ideas can be, pretty everyday type things, or, go big and see what the kids can come up with. And then take a little time after to let students share with each other what they came up with, their ideas and how they'd work, because that's kind of the fun of this lesson, is just exploring and kind of creating, seeing what we could come up with. I hope you have a great lesson. If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to call me. If you're having any troubles with your teachers, please let me know and I'll try and help you work things out. And otherwise, I hope things are going so great and that you have a wonderful January.